On today's episode, we'll be discussing the ADPA hierarchy, the do's, don'ts, and don't even thinks of being a PA, the office PA, the first team PA, the key PA, and of course, the dreaded job of the walkie PA. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and GUI operator goodness. Make sure to check out the breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, the musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to a bonus episode of The Op. My name is Dave Comides. I am your host, and today we're doing something a little different because a friend of mine, David Kopp, who helps me with the website, suggested that because a lot of people who are coming out of school who want to get into operating and cinematography and camera probably aren't going to jump right in there and probably are going to start out as production assistants. And it might be interesting to talk to a couple production assistants just to find out what their job is like, do's and don'ts, et cetera, to demystify all of that. Production assistants on every job I've ever worked on, pretty much. And truthfully, they kind of keep the set running in many ways. So the first person I have is someone I've worked with who is fantastic at her job, Lauren Senger, who is a key set PA. And away we go. Lauren, thank you for being on the internet here with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me, Dave. I'm very excited to talk about it all.
I actually, when I mentioned this to Lauren, your first response was, "God, I wish someone had done that before I started."
Yeah. When I was first thinking about getting into the industry, I was pretty much focused on looking up PAs on TikTok and seeing what they were posting day in their lives as a PA. So I got my information from TikTok. But
Did you learn
it was
anything? Was there
helpful.
anything of value? It was? Okay, good.
The first thing I learned was about office PAs. So the set stuff was very much hands-on learning, but yeah, it was
Okay.
actually helpful.
Is office PAs, like, generally, if you don't know anything and it's your first time on set, is an office PA probably where you're going to start out?
Not necessarily. It really depends on who the person you're talking to is and where they're working. So the production office coordinator usually hires office PAs, and the second assistant director hires the set PAs. So it just matters who you get in contact with. And
Gotcha.
if you would rather go to the other one, they can always put you in contact with that other person. But
Okay.
it's either way. You learn such different things in each spot, but they're both really helpful.
Well, that's it's funny because now that you mention it, it makes perfect sense that there's a delineation, but I never thought about it before.
Hmm.
So let's office PAs. I'm assuming maybe I'm wrong. Is somewhat sort of self-explanatory, where what basically you're helping in the office, you're running stuff to set and back. What other things do office PAs tend to do?
Yeah, when I had my little stint as an office PA, it was about 6 months. Um, the biggest things that we did were print out the call sheets and the sides for set for the next morning,
Hmm.
and did all the cutting and printed one-liners, day out of days, stuff for execs that either had to be sent to set or put in their office. And we did the crafty, we did the lunch, and I actually got some experience with filling out the production reports when it was towards the end of the shoot. A lot of the production reports had some stuff missing, so I was
Hmm.
given the task of going back through and adjusting and correcting and putting in the right meal penalties or the correct times for each department. So I got I got to know production reports quite a bit. I don't know if that's a normal thing for an office PA. I assume it is, but
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
And for let's say I'm a camera operator who doesn't completely understand what a production report exactly is and who would fill it out before you, the PA, would go over it and make sure it's right. Who does the production report and what kind of information is on it?
So, as far as I'm concerned, the second assistant director will fill out the production report at the end of the shooting day. And
Okay.
stuff that they're including are the ins and the out times and the lunch times for every department. That's where they get that information from the daily timesheets that are filled out at the end of the day. And so they put that stuff, they put meal penalties, anything that happened on set that's worth noting, such as a lightning delay or some other kind of delay that's written in the production notes, what scenes were completed, and how many pages were done from the script that day. Just honestly, it's the Bible of that shooting day. It has everything that
Gotcha.
happened, everything um, that a producer might want to know.
Yeah, and actually, it's worth mentioning. I'm assuming that this is correct. That like anytime there's an accident on set, everybody, no matter how minor, everybody always says make sure it gets put on the production report, just so that there's
Yep.
some I guess information about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you must sort of passively learn a lot about how the set works and what happens.
As a office production assistant,
Yeah, and I mean, reading the production reports and looking at the call sheets and whatnot. I mean, is there a fair amount that you learn about just how the set works?
yeah, I obviously the majority of the stuff that I learned, like maybe 90% of the stuff I learned about set happened on set, but it
Hmm.
was nice to get a glimpse into what they were doing, especially when we were filming at the stage and they had us run some stuff down to set and we got to go kind of peek in and take a look at what they were doing. That was always a
Hmm.
fun thing for me, and I think that's when I realized I should probably try to be a set PA when the more
Yeah.
interesting part of my
Okay.
job was going to set.
Sure.
But you do learn a good amount, especially when you are involved in printing out the call sheet and the sides and just running all of the scripts and yeah, one-liners to whoever needs them.
That's great. And before we get into set PAing, if you are an office PA and you go, "Hey, I really like this, and I like the paperwork, and I like whatever's going on in the office, and I want to stay on sort of, for lack of a better word, this side of production." Where does an office PA usually like? What's moving up the ladder? Where do they end up going? Because clearly, an office PA who wants to be in the office doesn't end up being a sound person or something like that. Like,
Right.
where do they go from there?
I think I don't know exactly the like hierarchy in every
Yeah.
situation, but from what I understand, you are working as an office PA and you can move up to the assistant production office coordinator. And from
Hmm.
there,
Okay.
the production office coordinator, there's production manager, and probably eventually a UPM, unit
Yeah.
production manager. I
That's
assume that they
yeah.
have all worked as an office PA at one point.
Gotcha. Okay, so eventually you basically were like, I like being on set, and so did you convince someone to get you on set as a set PA, or how'd you do that?
I had a really interesting start where the person that got me into the industry was a producer in Georgia, and she
Hmm.
knew a producer in Chicago that was doing like I think it was two shows at the time in the city. So she reached out to her and gave her my resume, my University of Iowa resume, and said, "Please give this girl a chance." And so she then put me in contact with the production manager of the office of the first show that I worked on. And she was like, "Hey, if you want to come in and day play in the office for the week, we have some stuff that we need done. We need to help the travel coordinator. They were booking hotels because the set was quite far from the city. So they just
Hmm.
wanted a PA that was there specifically to help the travel coordinator get all the room keys and hand them out on set. So my first office PA job was going to set to hand out hotel room keys.
All right.
And eventually, they wanted me to do it again when they were staying out in like the country for a week straight. And they put me up in the hotel as well and said, okay, when you're done passing out the hotel room keys, you can go to set and see if the second AD Tyler needs any help. So
Oh, nice.
I met Tyler very quickly, and he just put me in contact actually with the key PA, who Matt put me in lockups, and they started teaching me how to be a set PA. So even though I was day playing as an office PA, I was learning how to be a set PA.
That's
And
great.
I kind of went back and forth. I was doing both a little bit. I helped in the office when they needed it, and when it was slow, Tyler gave me some additional PA days on set. I worked on set for like a month or two, and then I got a full-time job in the office. So, like I said, it was back and forth. So I was learning a
Hmm.
lot at once.
Yeah,
But it
that's
was
great.
really helpful, and yeah.
And then because you mentioned you talked to the second AD, so what's the difference between the second AD and the second AD?
So the actually, I guess the one I talked to was the second. But the just regular second AD, also named the key second AD. They're the ones who make the call sheets, and they work closely with the first AD for the scheduling and stuff. And I think they mostly will stay at the base camp, and they manage kind of all that stuff.
Well, I think what I was getting to from my point of view, and for someone coming in, is like I being on set, I almost never meet the second AD. I mean, sometimes I will
Right.
if there's a question or whatever, but they're basically like sort of off the set doing all the other stuff that keeps the future moving. And it seems like the
Yeah.
second AD is on set, standing next to the camera operator and whoever,
Hmm.
and sort of helping with on set stuff. So when you show up and you're a PA on set for the first time, who's the person who you're reporting to? Is that the right thing
Right.
to ask?
Yeah, I think when I've jumped on sets, the first people I try to meet are the other PAs. If there is a key PA, there isn't
Hmm.
always a key PA, but usually that'll be the first person I try to meet because they can show me who the second AD is, and those are like the two people that I'm focused on meeting at first. Um, a lot of
Hmm.
first ADs, from what I've gathered, do like when you introduce yourself, and then other first ADs are so busy they're not necessarily worried about all the PAs introducing themselves. So I kind of ask, I'll ask another PA like, do they like, you know, would they like me to go up
Yeah,
there and tell them who I am? Um, and if they do, then I'll do that. And if they don't, I'll hang out. But yeah, the people that give me my tasks and my duties for the day are usually the key PA, if not also the second AD.
gotcha. Okay, now here's a silly question, but well, maybe it's not for me. It's not. Um, I'm a PA. I'm a new PA on a show, and I know what I'm doing as a PA, but I've never been on this show before. I show up at call. At what, like, where do I actually go? Who do I report to? And who do I find out what I'm supposed to be doing? Because I would imagine every PA is sort of doing different things on every shows.
Yeah, there's a certain like when you show up as an additional PA on a show that's like fully in the works and they've been shooting for a while. Sometimes it is a little nerve-wracking to be like, okay, I'm a newbie and I'm jumping on this set, and how do they act with each other? Is this a chill set? Is it kind of uptight? So it is kind of nerve-wracking to figure those things out, but I just try to relax, and the first thing I do, crew parking, get in a van, go to set, and go find a walkie. um, I will have to ask around who is the walkie PA sometimes and figure that out, but usually they're the person that I get my information from. Okay, is there a key PA? Who is that? Is the second AD here? And depending on how open they are to giving me all this information, if they're quite busy, I'll sit back and I'll wait for another opening. But um, it's it's really just about like getting your face known by those people
Mm.
and not bugging them to the point of they're like, okay, get out of my face, I'm doing stuff, but making sure that they know, okay, she's here to work and she wants to know what to do, so let me get back to her when I'm in a point where I can think.
Yeah. So you have to, I mean, like everybody on set, you have to become you have to get good really fast at reading attitudes and reading situations, I would imagine.
Yeah, totally. And like I said, it's easier on some sets than others, but if if you get if you get in this show or movie through somebody that you know already, if there's another PA that works on it and got you on, that's a lot more helpful too. Just having somebody that you can text and ask questions to. A lot of times they'll put you in a group message, like a PA group chat for the day. That's where you can
Hmm.
introduce yourself. And I've worked on really big sets with there's a ton of other PAs that I never even ended up meeting because it's a huge lockup of like 5 blocks, and there's somebody like
Hmm.
almost a mile away just standing on another corner. So it's nice. I try to save all of the numbers of the PAs that are in each group chat so that I at
Right.
least have some kind of contact for everybody that I've worked with, even if I never really talked to them or met them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you've mentioned it a couple times and it occurs to me people who are new to this may not know. Can you just tell me, because I would imagine that as like a day playing PA, you may get put on a lockup. And can you just explain what that is and what you are doing as a PA who's locking up a corner or locking up a building or whatever?
Yeah. When we are doing exterior scenes and uh, we're looking at a certain spot, maybe it's on a street corner or maybe it's just like on the side of a building, the key PA or the second AD will place all the PAs that they have in spots that will ensure that if they're standing there paying attention and doing their job, nobody will walk into our shot. Nobody will be making noise from that corner, ruining the sound of the shot. And it's a safety thing too, like making sure that pedestrians aren't, going to run into our gear or um, run into a camera. But
Yeah.
I'll be put maybe on a street corner. It could be like 2 blocks away if it's maybe a driving scene and we need to lock up a ton of different blocks to make sure people aren't walking into the street. I'll be 2 blocks down. I'll be on a corner. When we call rolling, I'm on guard. I'm making sure that even our crew or pedestrians aren't walking into the street. And I just will say, "Hi, I'm so sorry. We're filming, and something. A car is going to be coming down. It might be kind of dangerous. If you wouldn't mind waiting here for me for a second, I'll let you know when you're good to go. It should be only a minute." And sometimes people are um, nicer than others. And if somebody's in a rush, they're gonna go through. They're gonna blow through your lockup, and there's not so much you can do about that. You just have to do your best. And if that does happen, and it is a dangerous situation, you're gonna want to call it out on walkie. Just it's called a bogey. A bogey blew through my lockup.
Hmm.
If it's just something where they might be super out of focus in the background crossing the street, you might not need to mention that. It's kind of like a give or take. They could be mad at you for not mentioning it. They could be mad at you for mentioning it. You know, so you really just have to.
Yeah.
It's a toss up. But yeah, it's just maintaining the integrity of the shot, basically, in whatever
Yeah.
way that they tell you to. It could be somebody, they don't want somebody walking through it. It could also just be the sound in that area. Maybe there's a lot of groups congregating over there talking, and it's not necessarily an issue that they're going to walk into our shot, but they're ruining it
Hmm.
nonetheless because of the sound. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of different things that you can be locking up, but those are the main two.
Yeah. And now you're a key set PA. So what does that mean? Sort of you're in charge of all the PAs?
Yeah, I take some of the tasks off of the second AD as the key PA because they they have like full reign. If I place a lockup and they're like, no, we don't need that, obviously they can change it up. But I try to take some stuff off of their plate so that they don't have to worry about something as small as, who's locking up in what area. Maybe
Hmm.
they'll tell me, okay, I want to make sure that that corner's locked up because of this. So they can give me an idea of where they want lockups placed, but not who's going where. Um,
Gotcha.
so yeah, my biggest job is just to take stuff off of their plate And I also will stand by the director on the show that I'm currently on. I'll stand by the director and kind of communicate with the second AD, who's usually by the DP, and kind of back and forth. Are they both good to move on? Do either of them want to go again? So that's me with one of them.
Mm-hmm. As communicating all that, and then you obviously get to learn a lot just from osmosis, right? From sort of hearing all that and hearing all the conversations and watching all that, right? Because your job is basically to be a fly on the wall there.
Yeah, it's insane how much I learned as just being an additional PA or a walkie PA. And then as soon as I got my first key PA job, it was like I felt like I unlocked a whole new side of the industry that I'd never seen before. Not only because I can watch the
That's excellent.
monitors, right? Like if I'm on a corner 3 blocks away, I have no idea what we're seeing. I don't know what they're doing. I just know
Hmm.
that this is what
Hmm.
I'm meant to do. But as the key PA, when I'm standing by Video Village, or sometimes I am with the DP, I'm able to actually watch and see what they're doing and see what they're talking about. I've learned so many things about different kinds of shots and like what a French over is that I never thought that I would have to know.
So let me ask you a question about that because you're standing next to the director, sometimes next to the DP. You're watching the monitors. You're listening to all those conversations, et cetera, et cetera. You're, I mean, just speaking to you, but I would imagine most people, you're someone who is like, oh, I want to learn more, and I'm surrounded by these people who have these great, great information. How do you know whether you should be asking questions that are not necessarily about your job, well, your job at hand, but like, hey, you mentioned the French over. Can you explain that? Can you explain to me what that means or whatever? Like, how do you know? Are there times when you should be asking those things or not, or is it not okay to ask those things? Like, how do you decide?
I think I've been really lucky that as my with my time as a key PA, I've been surrounded by really nice and amazing people who I feel comfortable with, and I feel like we
Mhm.
have a level of like almost friendship that if I'm asking something at a bad time, they feel comfortable being like that it's not a good time to ask. But
Mhm.
either way, just saying, "Do you have a second, or are you busy, or can I ask a question?" is what I've said quite a few times actually.
Mm.
And
Good.
usually they're like, "Oh yeah, what's up?" or "Yeah, give me a second," Something I feel like I've met people who are really willing to teach, and I think that's, I'm really lucky for that. But it's just about, you know, putting out feelers and seeing if if they are ready and willing to provide information that doesn't help them at all. It's strictly for you. Um,
Mhm.
it can be tough to figure out if somebody is going to be like cool about you asking something while they're at work. But
Yeah.
if you have a prior relationship to them before and you've had conversations with them that aren't about work and stuff such as that, I think I
Mhm.
think you just have to go with your gut. And if you're uncomfortable, if you feel really nervous about, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is the right time, it's probably the safest bet to not ask if you're really, you know, you're questioning yourself that much, and just get their email and you can ask them, when they're not working.
Wow, that's good advice. That's good advice. The other thing that occurs to me, and you can answer this however you want, there's part of me that thinks that if you're in that position, you've got a little bit of aspect of the Secret Service where you probably hear and see all sorts of things that you have to put in a vault and not and not respond to and not pass on. Is that accurate?
Oh boy, yeah. Especially
You can just say
when you
yes or no. You don't have
stand,
to go into
yeah,
details.
especially when you stand like with producers and stuff. There are things that they don't
Yeah.
think that you're hearing, or maybe that they don't care that you're hearing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's about all about that NDA that you signed.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of set politics there. And then so then once you're a key set PA, where do you move on to being like a second, or I mean, what's the progression from there? If you want to stay in the AD track.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm currently still figuring it out, honestly. I
Hmm.
feel like I got into the key PA role kind of like quicker than I expected to. I was kind of thrown into it on an indie that I worked on, and then um, they thought that I was good at it, and so then they brought me onto the show that I'm currently on in this role. So I feel like a lot of times people don't go into a key PA role as quickly as maybe I did, but that's where I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out if I want to be an AD. I am working towards my days nonetheless. You need, I think it's 600 days to apply to be in the DGA, the Directors
Hmm.
Guild of America. And I'm only like just after 200 days. So I'm still figuring it out, but there are other jobs that I've definitely gained interest in, specifically since being able to stand at Video Village, because I've learned a lot more about script supervising, being there and watching what the script supervisor is doing. So that's something
Hmm.
too that like I'm looking into as I am being a PA. It's something that when you join the industry and you're working as a production assistant, you're not going to be a PA forever, probably, especially considering there's not a union for PAs and it's
Hmm.
hard to be in that position forever. But your part of your job is that you can just watch and see what's happening around you with different departments and the duties of a different of a prop person, or what the grip and electrics are doing. And um, if you have a really good second, they will be more than happy to help you get into a role that you feel is most comfortable for you, and you feel like maybe you want to go and be a wardrobe or a costumer rather than be an AD. And yeah, if you have a really great second, they'll understand that. Um,
Hmm.
but a lot of times they're trying to also craft these PAs into being their future second ADs. So they might put a lot of pride in teaching you certain things, and fostering this PA that you will become. But it's like it's a tough thing when when you feel like you are working towards something that maybe you might not want to do forever. But
Yeah.
what about this industry is so great is that you can move into a different department, or you can go into the office. There are so many different things that you can do. Um, and it's just about like finding which one is what's going to fit you best. Um,
Hmm.
but if you do want to be an AD, then it really is just getting as many PA days as you can, union PA days, and working towards building your book to submit to the DGA. And you need to save all your call sheets or just put them somewhere in your email, like make a separate folder for call sheets, because when the time comes, that's what you'll be submitting. You'll be submitting 600 call sheets that proved that you worked on a
Oh,
union show or movie.
wow. And
So, yeah,
your book is basically a list of all the days, I'm assuming, with information of like who the ADs are and whatever, or something along those lines.
yeah, yeah. It's just showing that, I think it's just showing how many days you've worked on which productions, and making sure that they were union. I think sometimes they'll accept indies or non-union gigs when you're like just inching towards 600, but the
Yeah,
large bulk has to be union
sure.
shows
That
and
makes sense.
movies.
All right. Well, Lauren, this was actually very educational for me because there's so much that goes on that I don't actually know about because we're all in our own little bubbles. But I
Hmm.
thank you for that. I'm going to ask you to leave us with your what do you think most PAs should know in order to succeed? What are your thoughts?
I did make a list of a couple do's and don'ts. Um,
Nice.
I have 4 do's and 3 don'ts. I'm sure there's more don'ts, but I'll have to get back to. So the first thing I have is from your very first day on as a PA on a show, you should make a list, maybe like a Google list of every AD that you worked for and every PA that you've worked with. Because if it comes to a period of time where you are really struggling to find work, you're going to want to revert back to that list and reach out to those people. Make sure to add their phone numbers or their emails. And yeah, or if you're like me, where you're a key PA and you're in charge of trying to find PAs that will work on your show, I'm forgetting every PA I've ever worked with. So it's nice to go back and look. And second, I said this a little bit before, but introduce yourself to the second AD on your first day with production. If not also the first AD, depends if they want to be introduced to. And third, carry around an extra hot walkie battery, hot as in charged, and a couple pens, a highlighter, a Sharpie, just things that people might go to a PA and ask for, even if you think that, why would I carry this around? You know, I did carry around a multi-tool for the first few shows that I was on. I no longer carry around a multi-tool, but it was, you know, the thought that counted. And then last do is mentioned before, but pay attention to the job duties of the people in the other departments, because if you decide you don't want to join the DGA, you have a good understanding of what other people do and what you might be interested in. And if you do want to join the DGA, that's great, because you're already in the right place and you're working towards what you need to be. And the couple don'ts that I have: if you go on a show or a movie as an additional PA, and it's, you know, it's your first day and there's a bunch of other additional PAs, do your best to not fade into the background and just be that additional PA that the key or the second AD barely met. You want to make yourself noticed, and you want to make yourself available, and you want them to ask you to do stuff, not because, you know, you're just the additional PA and you're going to have to do all the other things that people don't want to do, but because you're going to want them to trust you enough to be able to go get the coffee for the director or do certain things. And when they notice that, oh, this additional PA we had today was really great and was willing to do 100 crafty runs, or was willing to run to the grip truck that's 4 blocks away, they're going to remember that and they're going to want you back. Next, don't chatter too much on the walkie. If you're asked a question, you know, keep it concise. Don't give a whole backstory before you give the answer. It's just, unless you're on a show, sometimes they do love a chatter, but keeping what you say on the walkie brief and to the point, so that it gets out there and people aren't annoyed on the other end listening to you blab on. And then last, don't clip yourself on the walkie, which means you're not giving the walkie enough time to actually listen what you're saying. So you hit the button, wait like at least half a second, if not a whole second, before you say yes or copy or no. And because otherwise it's just a sound that comes out on the other end, and people are gonna be like, I have no idea what you just said. Please give yourself a little bit more time. And that's all I wrote down, but I hope it was helpful.
So moving right along, next up we have Jeff Sweeney, a key PA on Chicago PD. Jeff and I actually have never met prior to a couple minutes ago. So Jeff, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and help out anyone who's interested in becoming a PA or trying it out.
Yeah, this is awesome. I mean, just talking to Lauren, I actually learned so much, because as a camera operator, like, I'm sort of in my bubble in the middle of the set. I don't realize 90% of what actually goes on out there, which is really amazing. So how long have you been in the film industry? And I'm assuming you've always been a PA, but how long have you been doing this?
I've been working as a PA since the end of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
My first gig was I did a few days on the movie Trial of Chicago 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, I've jumped between multiple TV shows and movies. I work primarily on Chicago PD. That's my full-time show.
Yeah.
But I've worked on other shows like The Batman and Force, The Shy, Mr. Throwback, just a variety of shows that have come through town. But PD is my main my main home base,
Cool.
where I'm the key PA now.
And were you the key PA on those shows, or were you just a PA, not just a PA?
Just a PA.
Okay?
I've tagged out, multiple positions in the PA hierarchy if someone's sick or someone needs to cover for a day. But PD is where I'm the key, and then I'm a support player elsewhere.
And so when you say you're a key PA, what exactly does that mean?
So the key PA is essentially the liaison position between the assistant directors who are in charge of the whole production PA department and the PA staff.
Gotcha.
So my job is to work with the ADs and delegate and assign the tasks for the production assistants. So helping, coordinate the day-by-day activities of where are all these PAs going to be, the people who are coming in, where are their lockups going to be, making sure that the background is there on time, working with the first team PA to make sure they're covered. It's kind of just a supervision position over all the production assistants.
And so this may be a silly question, but so the night before, are you basically like mapping out who you have and whose strengths are what and where you're going to put people and how you're going to do lockups?
Yes, essentially. Because I'll have my core staff who, whether it's, a long show or a short show, the core staff will stay the same for the run of it unless, there's a personnel change. But I'll know my people and I'll know that they know how to do their jobs.
Yeah.
And I'll trust them and I'll coordinate with them to make sure that they have what they need to execute those positions correctly. But then my main concern the night before is going to be looking at where we're filming the next day and just what are the logistical challenges that location is going to bring. If it's on a sound stage, that's less of an issue, but still knowing, okay, we're on this stage, so there's going to be trucks that go through the breezeway that we might have to have a PA out there to warn them to stop because we're not soundproofed well enough. Or if we're filming downtown, I'll, pull up the Google Maps of the intersection and be like, all right, let's see what stores are nearby. Let's see what will be busy. Is it a one-way? Is it a two-way? Wow. Just having all these ideas in my mind. Something I always say is that PAs are essentially sponges of information. And the role, like one of the core roles of a PA is just absorbing as much information as you can. So when a crew member comes up to squeeze you for some, you have, information that comes out of you.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so it's just gathering as much of that as I can.
Yeah. And show like Chicago PD, how many, you said you have your core PAs, like how many PAs are on any given day, assuming it's not some huge lockup or stunt or whatever, but like your average day?
Yeah. So on Chicago PD or the show I'm working on right now, which is called Mr. Throwback, there's a core staff of 5 PAs. It's a key PA, a first team PA who is responsible for running the cast of the show, like making sure that they get their makeup, their touches, make sure the cast is on set when needed. There's the background PA who handles all of the extras, all of the background actors and performers through the day. There's the walkie PA who has the thankless job of getting 200 small individual radios, assigning them to each individual crew member, making sure that they all work, and then make sure there's always fresh batteries for those people. And then there's a 5th position that's kind of nebulous. If a show has a 5th PA, it's usually not the same. Like on Chicago PD, our 5th player is a first team helper. So they help out because we have a big cast.
Yeah.
So they help out our first team PA with running the cast. Whereas the show that I'm working on right now, that 5th player is just, they work at base camp. They're at base camp, helping coordinate all of the goings-ons there. So it's really kind of a nebulous position. It's not always there. Most shows won't have a 5th PA. But if there is a 5th PA, it's usually just to fill the hole that has become evident.
Gotcha. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So the average TV show will have four, or in some cases 5 full-time PAs?
Yeah, about 4 to 5 full-time PAs. And then usually there will be at least 1 to 3 additional PAs being brought in as well per day.
Okay.
Some shows will hire the same person as those additional and kind of create like a shadow 6th staff member. But additional PAs can range from someone who's been doing it for a long time to a first timer. Gotcha. It's just the extra position, the extra people who are brought in to supplement the staff PAs.
Yeah. And you have been kind enough to share with me an amazing document that's sort of like so you don't know how to PA. Well, here's everything you need to know, including, like, I was amazed to see, including uh, terminology and stuff like that. It was fantastic. So, and you've been gracious enough to allow me to post it on the website, which will be posted on the website, on the page for this episode. But can you share, like, first, what don't I want to do if I'm coming into a show as a PA? Let's say I'm not one of the five main ones or four main ones, but I'm like the extra day player PA. Like, what don't I want to do?
If you're coming into a show for the first time, whether you're an established PA who's been around for a long time, or if you've never worked on a set before, it's the same. I think you should come in with the same, headspace of just you're not there to immediately come in and prove your worth. You're coming in there to fill the hole and help out however you can. You're there to learn, because every show is different. Even if you've been doing this for 600 days, you go into a new show and it's a different process there. So just having a sense of humility, not having an ego about yourself and your abilities, not feeling like if you're put onto a street corner and asked to just make sure someone doesn't walk across the street for 6 hours, you might be like, well, I went to college. I'm better than this. Well, that may be true, but at the same time, you're doing an essential position. By making sure that no one's walking across that street, you're allowing us to get the shot that we need. If someone walks across that street into the shot, we have to do it again. And that's 5 minutes of our day that's lost. And no matter how small your position may seem, ultimately you're saving time in the day and you are contributing. So I think just having that mindset, the most important thing is just coming in and you're there to help however you can.
Copy.
And PAs who have that mentality,
yeah,
come in, check the ego at the door and just do whatever they need to do. Those are the people who move on and succeed in this industry, I feel like.
That's great. I mean, that's fantastic. I think that probably actually goes for any position, probably on many levels. And then, so I've never PA'd before. Someone calls me and goes, "Hey, we need someone, like, nobody's available. Do you want to do this tomorrow?" I have a 7 a.m. call on the back of the call sheet, which somehow I figure out. I show up at crew parking. What do I do?
So you pulled into crew parking. You, Dave, have pulled into crew parking as a PA. The first thing you're gonna likely look for is a white van. Normally we tell people not to go into random white vans. In this case, we are encouraging you to do so.
Well done.
Hop in the white hop in the white van and it will take you to set.
And hopefully it has the name of the show on the front of the van. Yes. And actually, having done this, make sure it has the name of your show on the front of the van, because that does happen to many of us.
You might wind up in on someone else's set.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe they'll appreciate the extra PA. But no, you'll get into the white van. It will take you to your set. When you get there, the first people you're going to want to look for are the key PA and the walkie PA. Because you're going to need a radio and you're going to need it quickly. That's how you're going to be communicating with your entire department throughout the day, and that's how you're going to know what's going on. So if you can't find the walkie PA right away, let's say you don't know what a walkie kit looks like, you don't know who the walkie PA is, that's totally fine. But you should look for the key PA, who hopefully has communicated with you in advance about where they're going to be and what their expectations for you on the day are. You'll find them, you'll introduce yourselves to them. They'll kind of give you the rundown of what is going to happen today and what will likely be expected of you, whether you'll be just doing lockups or if you'll be helping with background or, XYZ, whatever your position may be. After that, you're going to get set up with a radio. If we're filming outside, you're going to get set up with a safety vest and whatever other gear you need. And then with all of that having happened, the rest of the day, the biggest advice I can always give is just observe. Just listen to your radio, know what's happening, try and start putting faces to names. The night before, something I'd always recommend is we have this incredible resource of IMDb. Look up everybody on the call sheet. Look up the actors, know what they look like. Look up the director, know what he looks like. Look up your bosses and just know what they've worked on.
Yeah.
And if you know all that information, when you're on set in your lockup, even if you're 3 blocks away from the action and you're like, well, I don't feel like I'm doing that much. You might have an actor who just wanders over there and they're all like, oh my God, we don't know where Adam went. You now have Adam and you call out, this is Dave, I have Adam. you're the hero for the day. You've saved us some time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is just, you get there in the morning and you do the checklist of what is expected in the morning, but then you're just there to learn and observe, and you'll find your moments to be a hero. Every PA every day gets one moment where they get to save us some time and be a hero. And that comes from just having that observation and just knowing what's happening. And it can be overwhelming at the start. You put a little earpiece in, you have 100 voices you don't recognize just bouncing through your head. And it is totally understood that that's overwhelming, but the only way you're going to get through it is through just, charging headforth into it and just immediately start being like, all right, I think that's the key PA who talked to me. So I know his voice. I know I need to listen to him, and then learning how he communicates with other people. Or, that's essentially the extent of it.
No, that's fantastic. So talk to me about, and I actually am asking this earnestly.
Yeah.
Talk to me about walkie etiquette. Because
Walkie
I know
etiquette.
there's a whole thing to walkie etiquette, and I generally, if I'm on I'm not on a walkie. Sometimes I'm on a headset, but that's a very specific thing with the DP. I don't have the hierarchy thing or whatever. So I'm a new PA. They give me this walkie. By the way, do you suggest that most people go out and get an earpiece that goes in their ear before the first day, and what should they get?
If you have enough headway, you should absolutely purchase a headset prior to coming to set.
And
it's going to be the most.
Is there a name for that, or is it called something? How do you know what it is?
Just a surveillance earpiece that's compatible with a Motorola CP200 radio.
Which has the two prongs that go into it, right?
Yeah, the two-prong one.
Right angle.
There are a few different pronged ones that you'll come across. Specifically, look for CP200 compatibility. And that should serve you well. Most shows use the CP200. I've not come across one that doesn't.
Mm-hmm. And then what about the protocol? Yeah.
Yeah, walkie etiquette is the core of it is that channel 1 is where production lives. And there's, there's at minimum 20 people on that radio. It can sometimes get up to 60 to 70 people on that one channel.
Whoa.
It's a lot of bodies. It's a lot of voices. That's a lot of people who have to get their thoughts across. The goal of the production assistants is to keep that as free as possible for our bosses to get across what they need. So as an additional PA, it's your first time, you shouldn't really be using that radio unless you have to. It's not really a place for jokes. It's not really a place for casual conversation. If you have a question, you should pull whoever you're about to ask that question to channel 2. That's an open channel that can be used by anyone. So if, let's say you have to use the restroom, hey, Jeff, go to channel 2. You flip to channel 2 and you can ask me about the restroom, and I'll, of course, tell you can go. And then, just otherwise keeping that channel 1 open so that you can listen up and hear what's happening and what your bosses are going to tell you. The core of the etiquette is just that should not get cluttered up, so that the first AD, the director, the key PA, other ADs can just be relaying that information and telling everybody what they need to happen and when they need it to happen.
Gotcha. And then there's the thing with the walkie where you've actually got to hold it down a beat before you speak and let it go after you speak.
Yes.
So you don't get clipped.
If you press the button, it usually takes about a half second for it to start transmitting. My biggest tip is always say hey before whatever you're about to say. So it's, hey, Jeff, go to channel 2. Or, hey, Mark, can you come over here? Or, hey, guys, we need to get this street clear because we're going to be filming here next. If you had that little hey, that's going to, if it gets clipped, you're only losing just a nonsense word. And the bulk of your sentence will make it through.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's good to know. See, these are things that I would never have thought of. Now, let's say, for purposes of this podcast, because this is sort of geared towards, people who want to be in camera. Let's say I went to school for camera work. I was a cinematographer in school. I've shot tons of stuff outside of school, and I get a job as a PA. So I'm on a set for the first time. Is there a proper way after well, first of all, how much time should I allow to pass before I even start floating? Hey, I'm actually sort of interested in camera. Is it cool if I talk to them? And or how can I make that work? Or should I just leave that off the table?
As a key PA, I always like to know what the PAs who are coming in want their career trajectory to be. Like when we bring in someone who I've never met before, they haven't worked on a film set before, one of the first things I'll try and ask them is just, so what do you want to do here? Because as a PA, the pipeline, if you stay as a PA, is to become an AD.
Mhm.
And if you want to become an AD, then we want you to stay on as a PA. If you don't have an interest in becoming an AD, totally fine. Just tell us what you want to do, and we'll try and help you, get connected with the people. That's at least my philosophy. Is if you come in and you tell me, yeah, I'm here because I want to work in movies and I want to get into this industry. I'm specifically interested in camera, but right now I'm taking whatever I can get. I'm going to hear you out. And I'm just going to be like, all right, well, I'll try and find some time and I'll connect you with a camera person. I'll point one out to you. Maybe I'll send someone over and let you know, hey, this guy, if you need a camera PA for a day, he's interested. But so just be open and honest with your bosses, what you want your career to turn into. And if they're, kindly, which hopefully they are, then they'll help you out.
And just because you sound like you are the kindly type, there are probably some people out there who just don't want to hear it. So if you sense that that's the case, do you just sit on it, or do you wait a while and then maybe at lunch go sit with the camera crew and say, "Can I talk to you?" Or is that frowned upon? I mean, I'm just wondering.
I wouldn't approach it that way. If you wanted to work with camera and your key PA, you mentioned your key PA at the beginning, he's like, I don't care, I just need you for the lockup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which happens.
But if there will be downtime during the day, you can find moments. Maybe you'll see a camera guy who's just kind of hanging out for a minute. He's just on his phone scrolling. We're waiting for something to happen. I think in those moments, there's an opportunity you can go up, introduce yourself, and just let them know what you're interested in. If they're receptive to it, then maybe that starts a conversation. If they're like, hey, I'm just trying to get some downtime, then, back off and give them some air to breathe. But I personally don't feel like there's any harm in just making that introduction during the appropriate moments. And the appropriate moment is pretty easy to spot, I feel like, when people are taking a step back. It's not really hard to read when there's good times to communicate with people.
Yeah, great. One other question I have for you is, and I don't know who usually does this, but a lot of shows that I'm on, they'll have a PA who stands next to the DP's cart, or if I'm remote operating, on a remote head, they'll have someone sometimes assigned to stand next to me. And I don't know if that's just someone comes to you and goes, "Hey, we need someone to go over there," and you decide who goes there. But that's my first question. But my second question is, and I ask it probably knowing the answer, but I want to hear your thought. Especially, let's say, next to the DP cart, right? The reality of the DP cart is there are a lot of conversations that go on right there that don't have to do with the shot going on there, and sometimes don't even have to do with any. There's all sorts of stuff that's said there. So is part of this also just putting stuff in a box and realizing I am a fly on the wall, but I'm here for this one purpose, and I'm going to put all the rest of that stuff away?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, there's always has to be someone from our production staff near the DP, and there's going to have to be people from our production staff near cameras that are not, that are spread out. If all three cameras are right next to the first city, then obviously I don't have to have a PA kind of also lurking there. But if they put a camera a block away to get the cross coverage of a car speeding down the road, we're going to want a PA there to be able to let us know, hey, B camera's ready to roll. And, let them know when we're rolling. To answer your second question, I've heard a lot of things.
That's why I asked. I mean, it's the reality. Come on.
Yeah, my biggest thing is always they know I'm there. Yep. If they don't want me to be there, they can ask me to leave, and I'll come back when I need to. There are moments where I've been like, this seems like a private conversation. I'll just step outside of the tent and I'll give them a minute.
Yeah.
But the thing is always they know you're there, and if they choose to have that conversation, just be smart, listen. Don't if they're talking about their family, don't just stand over them. It's hard. You obviously can't block the noise from getting into your ear, but just you don't have to leave unless you want to. But don't be weird.
Yeah.
It's the biggest advice. Don't be weird.
That's
Like,
a good. That's a good way to
yeah.
put it. 100%.
The
No,
same
because
way you
go ahead.
the same
Yeah.
way you'd handle if you're at a bar and there's like someone at the table next to you talking. Like, don't be weird. Don't like lean in
Yeah.
and try and listen to their conversation. If you
Yeah.
hear some of it, you hear some of it. But
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, the reason that I ask is because look, the reality is sets are high pressure situations,
Yeah.
and there's a lot going on fast. And there's sometimes where people get frustrated and they do say things or they get upset with someone.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens on every set, and so you end up
Yeah.
hearing stuff or seeing stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's all that. Now, of all the positions that you've mentioned that the PAs do, is there like a more sought after position? And like, I mean, is the battery PA like the dreaded position that it sort of sounds like?
Yeah, the battery walkie PA. That's like your entry level staff position.
Okay.
That's what I started as. I started as a walkie PA. I did a walkie PA for 8 months, which was a slog. I love doing it. It's a great position to meet the entire crew because you have to be coordinating with everyone.
Yeah, I was going to say you must meet everybody. I mean, immediately.
And because as a walkie PA, a big part of your job is also going to be working with the transportation department, communicating with them about what's happening.
Okay.
So as a walkie PA, I got to meet the entire crew. I got very close with our transportation teamsters. And then after 8 months of being a walkie PA, they bumped me immediately to key PA on the show I was working on because there was a big change up in staff and our key PA left to go to Oklahoma. So they bumped me up. So I have never in a long-term staff position been a background PA or a first team PA.
Gotcha.
I've worked those positions on like a day-by-day basis, and I obviously, as a key PA, help coordinate that. So I have my hands in the pot a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, to loop back to your question, desirability-wise, I would say first team is kind of I don't want to use the term glamorous because that feels like somewhat reductive because it is a hard job.
Yep.
But, it's the position where you're working with the actors. You're working with the actors and you're in the middle. You're highly visible. So I'd say that desirability wise is be that. Key PA is also desirable just because it is the leadership position.
Mm-hmm.
Background is, kind of iffy. Some people really enjoy the process of working with the background and getting to kind of create that background art. Some people hate having to deal with 200 people a day. That's really a personality basis, whether you're built to run background or not.
But background wise, the background PA is really dealing with them offset, right? Because usually when I'm on set, I'm dealing with the second as far as like, or even the first, as far as like, creating the shot with the background.
Yeah, usually the ADs will coordinate the like where they want the background placed. But a more experienced background PA will also be involved in the setting of the background.
Gotcha.
Obviously, if you just started with it, you don't really know the process of setting background. You're just checking them in, putting them in a bus, bringing them to set, making sure they're comfy, and then bringing them in when we need them.
Gotcha.
But if you've been doing it for a while, it's good for you to learn that process. And an AD who's interested in their PAs learning these abilities, we'll try and get them in the mix. And hey, so here's where we're looking. Like, let's kind of create this activity that the first AD and the director want.
That's great. So I'm gonna, as I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, I'm gonna point people to the podcast page on the website, which will have a PA, podcast when this comes out, a link, and your amazing document will be there. Do you want to? So thank you, but do you want to take us out with? I asked you the don'ts, and I thought, suggestions for what people should do, or just suggestions on being successful?
Suggestions on being successful. Biggest thing is just come prepared, and prepared not just, knowledgeability wise. Come prepared, look at the weather, know what you're going to have to bring tomorrow. On that little document that you'll have, I listed things that you should bring. You should have pens. You should have a physical copy of the call sheet. You should have in your brain, knowing what all the actors look like. Bring some Sharpies, bring a lighter. All these things that you bring are going to be extremely beneficial. And if we see a PA who comes in prepared and ready and just, eager to jump in, that's going to be the PA who gets a call back. who's going to be brought back a lot more and is going to be noticed by other departments. Camera, prop, script. If you're looking to get into those departments, they're going to see this PA who's on set really crushing it, and they're going to be like, that's someone we'd like to have in our department. That person seems like they're really driven. So I would just say, the biggest do is be prepared. Know what you're walking into, and, be eager to take it on.
All right. Well, next up, we have Ana Pellar, who is a first team PA that I worked with on a show a little while back. And she's here to talk about being a first team PA. Ana, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Dave.
This is cool. So tell me, what does a first team PA do?
So basically, what I do in a nutshell, I would say is you are assisting the cast from the top of the day till the end of their day. And that can mean a few things. In the mornings, usually before crew call, you're helping at base camp with the base camp AD or the second AD and whatever they need, and helping the cast get through hair and makeup and costumes. Generally, it's getting their breakfast, making sure they're comfortable with that. And then this is more the base camp AD, but it's cool that you get to watch it. But the base camp AD will be communicating with either the second AD or the first AD on set, whoever's there first in the morning, on exactly when they want the cast over there. Do they want them at crew call, or give it 10 minutes? The director's not here yet. And it's just watching that happen and then being on standby to walk the cast over to exactly which stage or which set. And just kind of being their buddy. And then throughout the day, it's making sure they're comfortable and they know where they're going in between takes. Are their chairs set up? Are they getting the hot snack? Do they need extra sides? I've run lines a couple times with cast members. Yeah, and then doing the same thing at lunch. And, if we're in the middle of a location where it's going to take as long as the lunch break itself, if they go through the line, then you're going to get their lunch order and making sure it gets to their base camp trailer when they break for lunch. And then at wrap, it's making sure they get back to base camp and the ADs over there are good to go with making sure costumes has gotten what they need back, that props has gotten all their rings. You get them on site, you walk them through wires and make sure they get de-wired. And then you make sure if they got a ride from Transpo that they're good on their way out.
Wow. So, I mean, it sort of sounds like you're kind of the mom to the to the cast in a way.
It definitely feels like being a parent sometimes. Even if there's a 65-year-old man, you're like, hi, are you okay? Are we comfortable? Yeah, so it definitely feels like that.
And when you said like they're in hair and makeup and you're helping them through hair and makeup. I mean, like you said, obviously, if it's their breakfast is ready, you're bringing them the breakfast or whatever. But are you also just sort of keeping an eye on everything and you're there in case any issues are? I mean, is the general idea that you're supposed to keep their train moving to get them to set, whatever that entails?
Oh yes, it's a lot of communication with the first AD on set. Like, yes, the cast is here. Yes, they're getting wired. Yes, they're whatever. Anything at base camp is more like the base camp AD is like the main person communicating with hair and makeup and costumes. And then I'd say the first team PA just kind of assists with whatever they need. So Taylor Casey is our lovely base camp AD, and like just whatever she needs, either in the morning or, to make sure the cast is going to be 100 when the first AD wants them.
So I got to imagine that it takes a certain personality to be good at this.
I do think there's a certain kind of finesse. There's obviously a lot of different personalities within a cast, whether it's a large cast or small cast, and they kind of all have different needs. And I would argue this is kind of, the PA is an extension of an AD in my mind. That's how I've always seen it. And I feel like the ADs are an extension of the director and getting whatever the director needs to finish the day. And so I think it's a lot of reading the room. And if this cast member really needs a quiet space. What are we going to do to get that for them? If this cast member likes to walk around and roam and talk to every crew member, how are we going to keep eyes on them? It's that sort of thing. And yeah, I do think there's some times when they really want to be hands-on and they want to joke and laugh, and then there's times where they really want to be in their own world. And I think it's just seeing that and going along with it. So
Yeah, that's amazing because obviously, like I've seen you on set, right? And you come and go, and I see you with the actors and this and that and the other. But until we just started talking, I never kind of realized, I mean, how really political and, like you said, reading the room, your job is, because I mean, just only because I hadn't thought about it much because it's not in front of me. So what would you say? What if someone is going? First of all, how did you start out as this? Did you start out in like The Office? How did you get to be a first team PA?
yeah, I started basically just networking first because
Yeah.
it's really hard. There's so many people that want to. It's a very niche kind of industry, and it's hard to get your foot in the door, like a lot of things. And it's a lot of networking because it's hard to convince someone that you think you can do this and to get. But I was really lucky, and I was cold emailing everyone, and I couldn't get anyone to give me a day on set. So eventually I switched gears and asked people if they would just get coffee with me. So I got a few people to say yes to that. And then I was super lucky because one of them was an alumni from my alma mater, which was Oklahoma City University. And he was currently, at the time, it was season 5 for him, in AD on a show in Chicago. And we had coffee, and then like I just kind of kept in touch, and then months later he finally got me on The Shy, actually. And I was just an additional like PA that kept saying, yes, I'll come back, I would love to come back. And then I got on a show actually in Oklahoma City University that AD that I got coffee with put me in touch with an AD from Chicago that was going down to do that show, and I went to college there, so I knew the area. And so I technically worked like as a distant hire, but not officially as a distant hire. But
Yeah.
I luckily didn't have a place to myself, so I packed up all my stuff, went down to Oklahoma City, worked for 6 months on a show, and then I came back here and I knew a couple ADs, and then that's how I kind of got in here. So I was an additional PA, and then I was a walkie PA, which is like a very underappreciated job, I will say.
I have to say that in talking
Yeah.
to the other people I've spoken with, I didn't understand how rough being a walkie PA
It's
was.
a cursed position, and I know people that if they're offered a spot on a show and it's to be the walkie PA, they'll say no. It's so
I
thankless
understand
and
why.
it's brutal. But it's all fun and game. I mean, it's not fun and games. Oh my god, if UPM heard me say that, they'd kill me.
I'm sure. Yeah, but that said, I mean, from what I understand, being the walkie PA, like you instantly learn who everybody is, right? Like
You know
you
who
meet
everyone
everybody.
is. You have to stay in communication and like keep on friendly ground with all the like best boys.
Yep.
And so it teaches you a lot too. And it's a good like observation PA spot. You have a little more,
Yeah.
I mean, you're in lockups all the time, but you also have a little freedom to go and chat with this department and see what they like and see what they do and that sort of thing. So I was walkies, and then went into first team. Yeah.
But what? So this may be tough to answer, but maybe if you could take yourself outside of yourself, what do you think? What do you think it is about your personality that someone saw that said this would be a good first team PA? Because I can imagine that there are some people that they look at who are like, "There's no way this person is ever going to be dealing with first team because they don't have the right,
Hmm.
attitude or whatever."
I think it comes down a lot to the ADs and their style and what they are kind of expecting. Um, I think a lot of the first team PA is also just communicating with the ADs everything they want to know. If they want a play-by-play on the walkie of what's happening with first team between base camp and when they're 100 on set, like making sure last looks are good, that costumes are nearby if they need any adjustments, that walking them through sound, then it's constantly updating on the walkie. If they're kind of a more tell me when they're ready to go and just make sure everything's happening, then you have to understand that and just make sure everything's happening. So it's a lot of communicating, and I think you can show that you're great at communicating through whatever role you have as a PA or through any job on set. And so I think that's the major thing, is making sure that the ADs feel like they're getting the information they need relating to the cast. And then, yeah, I think it's also, I feel like so much of it is like observing and reading the room, but if you can see that someone can handle multiple personalities, or not handle, if someone can, read multiple personalities and figure out how to make them comfy, then that's kind of all it is at the end of the day. So
Yeah, well, it's occurred to me in talking to you that, like, I mean, again, only because I hadn't thought about it, because you tend not to. There's so much going on set, you tend to think about the stuff that's right in front of you. But
mm-hmm.
what an integral part of making the day you obviously are, because if the cast is happy, then just it's all downhill from there. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you do when you're on a, no, obviously not the show you're on right now, but what do you do if you were on a show where you just have a cast member who is impossible to work with, like won't communicate with you, won't do what they're asked to do time wise and whatever? I mean, how do you deal with that?
There's definitely a point where you step back and you say, this is out of my power. This person is not coming out for whatever reason. If they're not coming out of their trailer, if they're refusing to, get wired for whatever reason. It again just comes down to communicating. The first person I would tell would be the second AD. I would pull them to two, because not everyone on Channel 1 needs to know the details. Especially if it's something personal, like, oh, they don't feel comfortable in a costume, or they're having like a personal problem in their personal lives and they're on a hard phone call. Then I just pull the second to two and I say, hey, just so you know, this is what's happening. I need you to, and then I leave it up to them if they're going to talk to the first AD. I mean, they should talk to the first AD. But how many details they need to tell the first AD. So, because if it's going to delay the schedule, the first needs to know. And even if, and then at some point, if they really need to get going, and they can't wait, I think an AD would step in and either talk to that cast member or talk to a producer if they're around, if it really is a major problem. But usually an AD, because they've been doing this for so long, I think they've seen quite a lot, and so they're pretty good at handling whatever situation and kind of resolving, putting out fires.
Yep. No, that all makes sense, because look, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. I also have to imagine that when you're this close with the actors, I'm not talking about getting, I'm sure you do get close to a lot of actors, but just when you're in their proximity all that time, and you're dealing with them and whatever, there must be a lot of things that you hear that you have to put in a box and just not hear.
There are a lot of things I hear, and I always think of there's a scene in Princess Diaries with Anne Hathaway, and oh my god, who's Maria in The Sound of Music? Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews, and she's like a queen. And this is just a side tangent, but she has an assistant, and she goes through something really personal in a room, like just between her and one other man. And the guy leaves, and she goes to the assistant. She was like, "Did you hear all that?" She goes, "Not if you didn't want me to." And I think about that all the time at work. If an actor is going through something or is having a heated conversation, if they want to loop me in and continue that conversation, I would love to give my 2 cents. If I'm just, I mean, I really, sometimes things come out, and you're just there to listen to them. If something's really frustrating and they need to vent for a few minutes, you you are their shoulder to cry on for a minute.
So you there's an aspect of being a therapist to your job as well on some level.
It goes back to being a mom. You are taking care of them. Yeah, I've definitely listened to some things, and you know, I'm
I'm
just
sure. And are most of the actors that you deal with, are they pretty? I mean, are they pretty happy to be dealing with you and know that you're there for them and whatever, and not take advantage? Because I'm sure there are some people who probably try to take advantage of that, and have you doing other things and whatnot that maybe are above and beyond. And I'm not asking for dirt. I'm just saying in general, like, are most people pretty understanding that, like, this is what she does for the show, and that's she's not calling and getting me opera tickets or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think, again, a personality plays a big role.
Yeah.
Because I've been on shows before where if your personality just doesn't fit with that cast, like, it's nothing personal, and they're gonna find someone that does.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happens often, actually.
This may be the wrong word, but, like, for instance, hair and makeup. If they're having some big conversation, I'm sure that part of your job with someone in your ear is sort of gently pushing them to go, hey, we got to get going. And I'm just wondering, are most people, like, okay with that? They understand that, no, that's what she's here to do, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. They understand that, especially if they're seasoned actors. They understand
Yeah.
it's the AD's job, it's the PA's job to push and, get things going and rolling.
Yep.
It also is, sometimes actors can, of course, get frustrated because they are a little bit, I mean, they're pushed around. It's a schedule that
Sure.
they're walked through every single time. And sometimes if it's a dramatic scene or something really emotional, I understand it's incredibly frustrating that three people are telling you to constantly hurry up and are you done? Are you done? And I people do get frustrated at the PAs, and I understand. We're the first person there. We're the one telling you everything, and if you're tired and if you've been on set for 12 hours the past 3 days, yeah, like, people snap. I get it. I snap all the time.
Yep.
But it's more the person that comes back, an hour later, a day later, and says, "Hey, sorry, that wasn't about you. I didn't mean that." And you're
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I know. And so you move on.
No, that's a
Um,
great that's a great point, because you mentioned hours. So let's say it's a TV show and it's a 7 a.m. call and it's going to be a 12-hour day. What time are you showing up at work then?
there's a good chance most of the days I have a 2-hour pre-call. So, and then generally at the end of the day, 30 minutes to an hour wrap, depending on how many casts are wrapped and how long costumes needs and hair and makeup to wrap out base camp.
So your average day for a 12-hour
Mhm.
shoot day is probably 15 and a half, 16 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, what a
It's
crazy
tough.
business.
It's really tough. There are a few times especially in the long winter weathers in Chicago, you come home and you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine. Good Lord.
So,
Hopefully you won't mind me mentioning this. You had mentioned to me at one point that you were interested in learning more about camera, and at some point you wanted to try to be a camera PA. I asked this because, a lot of people who are listening to this are actually in very similar situations. So, like, how do you come in as a new PA? Do you come in and go, "Hey, I'm a PA, but I want to be in camera"? Or, like, how do you start talking about that, and how do you bring that up? And do you go talk to the camera people and find out information when you have time off? Like, what's the
yeah.
etiquette of that?
I do think there are so many different kinds of ADs that
Sure.
there are different ways that I would go about it based on their personalities. If you have a really strict AD, like a really stern kind of, you know, um, I wouldn't mention it if you're trying to get hired. I would get the job and then start the job and do it really well. And then, you know, eventually people start asking you, what do you want to do? Why are you here? I mean, if they're decent humans, they ask you that.
So maybe they don't.
And
Yeah.
I guess not decent if they have
No,
the
I
time,
know.
because I know
Yeah.
it gets crazy on set. But and that's a time to open up and be honest and say, I do enjoy. Always say, mention you enjoy and you appreciate being here, and never take it for granted. But
Good note.
you can always. I think if it's a safe environment, which sometimes it's not, but if it's safe, you should be able to say, I'm interested in this position right now. And then there are definitely times to, there's a lot of downtime on set. Downtime meaning not as a PA, because there is usually always something to do.
Yep.
But if there's something going on with the camera department, like they need to, I don't know, recalibrate a lens or the focus monitor, that's going to take a couple minutes. Then maybe you start whispering in a prop department's ear and say, hey, can I just watch you more closely? Or can I grab a
Mm-hmm.
coffee over the weekend and can we chat about how you got into the union and if you guys would ever need a props PA or assistant? And, that's just an example, but
Yeah.
it's kind of finding the right time and place to start whispering in people's ears, oh, I'm interested in this department. I might be interested in this. Do you think you guys, or do you know anyone that would have a camera PA spot or, a costumes PA, anything like that?
Yeah, that's great advice. Because you mentioned it and you said there's always something for PAs to do. Are you somewhat exempt from that because you always have to be available for the cast? Like, do you always have to be on standby for them? And it's sort of like we can't ask you to go do something else because you might be needed?
There are some time, a lot of times, yes.
Yeah.
And it's, I imagine, kind of frustrating for the key or like another PA if they're like, oh, I really need another hand to grab these lunch orders, and then it's like, well, I'm sorry, I'm with the cast grabbing their
Yeah.
lunch orders or
Sure.
whatever. But it's it is what it is. Like, it
Yeah.
is your job to be by the cast, and I kind of try and make sure they know that I'm there. Like, I'll show my face, but I won't. I don't like to hover around them if they. Sometimes they just want to chat and be left alone. So, so it is kind of doing that. But then I feel like that's a time I kind of wander over to Lauren, our key PA, and I'll be like, "Do you? If this is a really big setup on location, like, yeah, she's going to put me in a lockup, and I'll just have to do my best being in that
Mm-hmm.
lockup and checking in with cast and hair and makeup and making sure
Yep.
everyone's good." Um, but but yeah, you do kind of need to be with them the whole day.
And then a lot of your job has to revolve around understanding the schedule and knowing when people have to be ready. I mean, are you given that the night before? Are you given like a sheet the morning of to go, this is when we're going to need people, or does it just evolve as
Oh
the day goes
no.
on?
As I've learned through my couple of years here, Dave, everything I need to know is on the call sheet.
There you go. Okay.
That
Good. Fair
front side
enough.
of the call sheet will walk you through the cast's day with hair and makeup based on their pickup time, their arrival time, their hair and makeup time, their ready on set time, and generally, sometimes the first AD will share. They make a daily schedule, like a loose schedule of how many hours they want for each scene, and
Hmm.
sometimes they'll share that with the PAs, and sometimes they don't. And so, luckily, I'm working with a first AD now that I really like, who shares it with the whole PA team every day, and it's super helpful
Yeah.
because I know when we need to push a little more too, because we're behind or we're just on time. And I mean, you should always be pushing a little, but that's just me. That's my opinion. uh, but yeah, yeah.
And then another question that I have for you that I just thought of is, you know, if you've been on a show where you've been with the cast for a while, so you really know them well. I mean, and someone shows up and it's clear that they didn't sleep well. They're having a bad day. Something happened. Whatever. Do you immediately give a heads up to the ads and just go, hey, just so you know, so and so might be having a little bit of a tough day and may need a little extra time, and might just be aware of this or whatever. Or do you let that work its way out?
I mean, yeah. If they usually if they are incredibly tired, I know a lot of actors that will go off and find a place to take a nap. And that's
Just like Crew.
always just like Crew, but it gives me a little heart attack every time, because if I turn around and they're not in their cast chair and they're not at base camp and they have purposely found a small, secret, quiet place, it is the second a first AD asks, "Where is the cast?" and you don't have an answer, horrifying. So, yeah.
Have you ever thought of getting Apple AirTags and just like sewing them into their clothing so you can track them all over?
We have definitely joked about that all the time.
That's
or
great.
like sharing your location with all the actors on your phone. Yeah, we've joked about that. But
wow.
They go off and nap, and you just have to know, or I just like to give them a 5-minute warning so they can kind of wake up and feel like they're fresh or ready to go or whatever.
Sure. That's great. Well, do's and don'ts as a I mean, you've hit a number of them. So anything else you can add of do's and don'ts as a first team PA?
For the don't, it's so specific, but don't be lacking on the walkie. If anything, like I think what would stress out an AD is if they constantly heard silence from the first team PA. They're asking a lot of questions on the walkie, like, how is this going? How is this? If you're too slow, or if you're not responding, or if you don't have an answer and you just choose not to respond instead of saying, let me find out, that is a big stressor for them. They need to know and feel confident that you know what's going on with the cast and that they're ready to go. So it's really being good on the walkie and constantly, if the cast is talking to you and it's like a random story that's about their weekend and the first AD is starting to talk to you, it's tuning that out while nodding your head while listening to the first AD. It's a lot of that sometimes. And then you respectfully bow out of the conversation to respond to the AD on the walkie. So I think walkie etiquette is a huge factor. At least I think it would be for me if I was an AD. The other thing is, like, no one wants to be blindsided. And that goes for the cast and for the crew. And I think when I try and communicate as best I can to the cast what we're doing camera-wise. Are we looking this way? Who exactly is going to be on frame? Is it a close-up? People generally want to know if their face is going to take up the whole screen. And so based on that, you need to know what's happening on set. And if you don't have the information, it's finding out that information, whether that's asking an AD or asking hair and makeup, hey, this guy has a busted lip. Are you going to need 5 more extra minutes to touch that up before we go on? So it's a lot of proactive thinking, too, about what does everyone need before they go into the room with the camera and they call roll, Like just the other day, I had an actress that was screaming. It's a fight scene. And so the first AD suggested, what drink are we going to have for them on standby between takes? Because her throat's going to get sore like any human. So luckily she just wanted room temperature water instead of hot tea to keep hot. And it's just being there when we cut and making sure that she's comfortable to go again.
Yeah. And actually, that makes me think of it. You have a big cast that you're dealing with. Do you end up knowing exactly kind of what they like?
They like definitely have tendencies. There were some people last season where I could, if they were there and their props chair was set up and I had the time, I would know which snacks they wanted before they got there. And people are creatures of habit. So.
Yeah. If it helps at all, there's a DP that I work with, who when I work with a new crew, I always say to like the second AC, hey, every couple of hours, if he doesn't have either some pretzels or Earl Grey tea in his hand, just go make Earl Grey tea with a little bit of milk and a thing of pretzels and just put them in his hand, and walk away. He'll
Yeah.
sort of wonder how he got it, but he'd be very happy, and it's what he would get anyway. So and it always works out that way. So it's in all departments. I think that works. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. And before I ask you one final question to take us out, I'm gonna throw out to everybody that if they're on Instagram, they should go to Anastasius.bakes. Is that the right Instagram?
Yes.
Which is Anna's Instagram thing for the baking that she does. And when I say baking, it's like if you went into some high class cupcake store and saw this and cake store, you would be blown away. It's insane. So I'll put it in the Instagram or in the website.
Thanks,
so people can go
Dave.
check
That
it
is
out,
so nice.
It's really cool. I was like, wow, she's a great PA and she does this. It was fantastic. So thank you so much. I'll let you take us out like I do with everybody and just ask you this question. What do you think people should know in order to succeed as a PA? What would your advice to them be?
Well, my first answer, I don't know if I'm allowed to use this language, but I would say just don't be a dick. Read the room and don't be a dick. I think that is right there, the main things, because no one wants to hire you if you're going to come in with your personal problems every single day or your bad attitude every day. Why would I want to work with that for 14 hours a day? And read the room. If people need a little pick-me-up, need a little joke, maybe bring that little sarcasm. If people are freaking tired and just like, maybe they just need some water, maybe offer them some water. You know, it's just that.
Thanks so much for listening to part 1 of How to Be a Successful PA. Stay tuned next week for part 2. And in the meantime, check out the op.io and have a great week. Thanks.